That's a parameter. Likewise, a function can also return values. So remember how I talked about a function can be a function that does something or returns something? This is how we create that. So the function does something right now. It takes the parameter from the outside, does something, and if I want it to return something, I can have it do that as well as or instead of doing something. Here's an example of that and how it looks. This function is called do addition. How many parameters does do addition take? 2, right. They're int number 1 and int number 2. And you can see this function is strictly a return something function. All it does is it takes int number 1, the parameter, int number 2, it adds them together, puts them into a container called int answer. Int answer, because I created here, only lives inside the function. See, functions are sort of like Las Vegas, right? In that what happens inside the function stays inside the function, okay? Now, I wasn't talking about casinos. So if this is created inside the function, that's where it lives. It doesn't exist outside the function. These are considered inside the function. They don't exist outside the function. Now, the only exception to that is this. If I type return and the value of a variable, then this function will send back whatever's inside that container. So what this function does is it takes those two parameters, adds them together, puts it in this bucket, and then says, whatever is in that bucket, send it back. So if I wanted to use this function, this is how I might use it. I might say do addition 2, 3 with the two parameters. This is my arguments. It would take those numbers, add them together, put them in here, and then return that. And that would go into this result, this bucket here. And then it would be printed out. Now I could just take this function and put it inside print if I wanted to. But it wouldn't be saved. It would just be printed. So let's run this. Okay, so that belongs up here. Okay, so there is my do addition. And this, notice, if I comment out the print statement, this isn't going to do anything. Because all I'm doing here is saying create this function and then run this function and put it in here. But I'm not printing it out, so it doesn't do anything visible. So if I run that now, then it returns the answer. I can, like I said, I could take this and just put it directly in here if I wanted to. Okay, this is just a nested function. So I've got the print function, and inside that I have my do addition function with the arguments 2 and 3. Let's change the arguments to 23 and 3. Okay, it still works, prints out 26. In fact, I can even do this. Okay, I can do that. I can actually take my custom function and put it inside a placeholder in my F string. And then it just goes down here and it says, print this out. It starts working through the F string, gets to here, and it says, oh, we need to do addition. Then it jumps up there, does that code, and puts the answer right into the place. So that's very tight code. and it allows me to do that. Now, remember I said functions can do something or return something. Right now, this is just to return something. It doesn't actually print anything or influence anything outside the function. But I could make it both. I can say adding inside here, I'm printing, this is inside the function, int number 1 and int number 2. Okay, so now I have a question for you. The way I have this structured is kind of interesting because what happens first? What happens first is I define the function, right? But it doesn't do anything yet because I haven't called the function. So now I start printing this. It starts printing, and it gets to here. And it says, uh-oh, I need that. So then it jumps up to this code, and it does the addition, and then it prints something, but I'm already right here. So my question for you is, when I run this code, how's it going to work? What gets printed first? It's got to be one or the other, or is it going to just print something inside of something else? You think prints inside something else? Let's see. Okay, prints it in the right order, and I'll tell you why. Because of, this all comes down to PEMDAS. Remember that stupid mathematical thing? We always go from the inside out. So it doesn't actually start here when it executes this line. What it does is it looks at this line and it says, what goes first? And the first thing it does is it goes here, because that's the innermost thing. It solves this, which means it goes up there, prints that, adds them together, puts the number here, and then it does this. Okay, so it always works inside out. Anytime you have functions inside of functions, inside out. If things are parallel inside that, it goes left to right, but it works from the inside out. And so that is return values. So that is the only way you get something out of a function. Okay, so getting things into functions, parameters. Getting things out of functions, return values. Otherwise, Las Vegas. Okay,